The hockey world lost Ray Shero yesterday at age 62. A tragically young age, a tragically voluminous loss for family and friends. My condolences to the Shero family, a hockey family that spans through the generations, and one that hopefully will resonate through this great game for many more generations to come. I have, on this occasion, a Shero story to share with you. It's not to make this about me or anything like that. It's just a personal interaction that I had, as well as a general experience, followed by, well, a really, really big regret. Shero built not just the 2008 and 2009 Penguins, both of whom made it to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Red Wings, prevailing, of course, in the second of those, Game 7 up at Joe Louis Arena. In so many ways, he built that group in his own image, meaning as the hockey family of which he'd always been a part. He was that GM who could be seen in the locker room. He was that GM who could hang with the players, who would listen to the stars, who would recognize that in Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Jordan Staal, Chris Letang, Marc-Andre Fleury, that he had something grand at hand. We all remember what that feeling was like around here. We all remember dreaming of not one cup, but of multiple cups, of cups as far as the eye could see. He was part of the fiber of that group, not just the one making the moves. It's actually always been my first thought about him. Now, that's not to take away from the moves. Inheriting the job that he did, and he used to talk openly about how this humbled him, from Craig Patrick, of all people, Hall of Famer. One thing he learned above all is that when you have a chance at a championship, you don't mess around with it. When you have elite talent, you do everything you can as quickly as you can to surround it with similar or supporting talent. That's why you go get Billy Guerin. That's why you go bring in a Gary Roberts. That's why you go after Sergei Gonchar. Yeah, I'm getting you tingling a little bit now, right? Yeah, just thinking of all those names, thinking of all those guys on the ice together and just building up around a baby-faced Sid the Kid. Not just anyone could do that. If you want parallels in the negative context, look at Edmonton. Look how long it took the Oilers to figure out how to do absolutely anything right, despite being handed Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and other really, really high and talented picks. That was never an issue here. That was never a concern here. In fact, probably the only thing about Shero's career in Pittsburgh that ever surprised anyone was the day that he got out. And he got out, and I don't have to guess at this since I was told this by both Mario Lemieux and Ron Burkle. He didn't want them firing Dan Bylsma. They wanted to fire Bylsma. He said, "You're going to have to fire me too," at which they said, "Okay, Ray, we're going to do that too then," with neither of those men understandably appreciating being put into a corner. But he didn't leave with his head down, got another job quickly in Newark. Same position, running the Devils, enjoyed some success there, really changed the way that organization thought about pretty much everything. And now, again, at this young age, just gone way, way, way too soon. To my regret, I had nothing but good experiences with the man. He would, this is an age that's already changed a lot in this business, where GMs would just randomly call you as a reporter and say, "Hey, here's what I'm actually trying to do." So you'd have some kind of background on it, not to necessarily sell you or spin you, but just to share some stuff that you might not know in putting your content together. Ray was great at this. Later in his tenure here, as you could see, the team was really starting to run into some walls, not least of which was the one in Boston, where they just couldn't penetrate anything the Bruins were doing in that Eastern Conference Final. especially not Tuukka Rask, and the team started to look really soft and a little bit older than it had been, which we weren't used to. And I started digging into the team's drafts, and I didn't like the results. I didn't like what was there. I didn't like what had made it. I didn't like what it appeared to be on the horizon. Some of that had to do with Derek Pouliot being a first-round pick, which is a whiff and a half. That never should have happened to anybody, much less someone as hockey brilliant as Shero. These were fair criticisms. But here's the problem with criticizing drafts. You better be right. And you know what? I wasn't. I'm going to read off to you the names of some of Shero's picks who made it to Pittsburgh after he was fired. Brian Rust, 2010. Olli Määttä, 2012. Matt Murray, 2012. Jake Gensel, 2013. And along the lines of acquiring young talent, he traded Stahl to Carolina for Brian Dumoulin. My friends, those are championship pieces, not in the mythical sense, in the real sense. They were all on the ice in either San Jose or Nashville in 2016 and 17. And while Jim Rutherford deserves all the credit he'll ever receive for finishing those two off, those are Shero players. And everyone involved, from Sid down in that locker room, will attest that they were going nowhere until those young guys came in. You'll remember it too. I know you will. What it was like in 2016 when Rust and Tom Kuhnhackl and Scott Wilson, those guys also were Shero picks, came in with Connor Sherry and just kind of woke everybody up, got everybody's juices going. Chris Kunitz talked about it openly at the time. We needed them. Those were Shero's guys. Those were Shero's draft picks. He knew they were coming, and he read what I wrote, and yet was never anything other than kind and courteous and professional. I blew it. I also, at least hope, learned from it. Because if you ever hear me on any of these programs or read any of my writing, when someone brings up something about a draft, and I come back at you with some kind of boring answer about how, well, that's going to take years to find out. This is why. This is why. It's always been about this. If you have a chance today, read up on Ray Shero's contributions, and for that matter, and he would like this even more, read up on Fred Shero. Fascinating story. The way he built up the Broad Street Bullies in Philadelphia, created a culture there that existed at least until about a half decade ago. Once again, my condolences to the Shero family. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes on an infinitely lighter note. It comes from Cody, who says, DK, is Sidney Crosby just the answer to everything involving Pittsburgh sports? I'm going to interrupt Cody here because he's referring to Sid, Gino, and Chris Letang all being part of this really unusual event last night at PPG Paints Arena where Pat McAfee, a local dude from Plum, who has a really, really, really popular show on ESPN, kind of had a show that played out, I guess I wasn't there, on this enormous long stage at PPG Paints Arena. And those three were there, celebrated by the sellout crowd of, I believe it was 12,500, something in that range, which is just remarkable for something like that. Ben Roethlisberger was there. Paul Skeens of the Pirates was there. Just, it's one of those bro shows, and he's probably as good at it as anybody's ever been. So near the end of it, I promise, Cody, I'll get to your question. I just have, some context here. So near the end of this, they bring down this giant, circle prop in which they were supposed to throw a football through it. And if you did that, somebody would get $1 million, go toward charity. Short story long, Skeens didn't make his. Ben, of course, did. It's kind of what he did for a living. And Sid takes the football. I've never seen him hold a football in my life. I know he loves watching the NFL, and I know he loves following the Steelers specifically. And I know that he once hit a home run out of PNC Park in taking BP with the Pirates once a few years back. But I don't think anybody knew what to expect except for Letang. Letang just said, of course, he's going to make it. He's Sid. And of course, he throws it. It's like half the length of the arena right into the circle because he's Sid. All right, so I rudely interrupted Cody, so I'm just going to start him from the beginning. He says, DK, Sid just the answer to everything involving Pittsburgh sports. He's one of the greatest hockey players to ever lace them up. He can bomb bombers in batting practice. He can nail a football throw from mid-ice, as he just showed. He's humble. And he's the hardest working. He's a great person and a role model off the ice. He will lead these Penguins back to the playoffs. Also, Sid for Steelers QB1, Sid for Pirates batting cleanup and first base, Sid for every political opening, and Sid for every position, period. All-time legend in every regard. I'm never going to put up an argument with anything that's positive about Sid. In fact, I'm going to close up today's program in a roundabout way by reading to you the statement that Sid put out upon hearing of Ray Shero's passing yesterday. He said, Ray Shero was a big part of my early days in Pittsburgh. He gave me a lot of opportunity as a young captain and supported me through his time. He did so much for our organization, and my memories with him are special. I am grateful for our time spent here and that we were able to share a Stanley Cup championship together. Let's do this again tomorrow, everybody.